mynews.studio.
An 88-year-old veteran at a grocery store checkout, and suddenly a million strangers are watching. What happens when the world steps in to fix what the system couldn't?
Let's start from the beginning. Early morning in Brighton, Michigan. Inside a Meijer grocery store, customers are greeted by Ed Bambus, neat, polite, standing at the checkout. He's 88, and he's not working for fun or for extra money. He has no choice.
Exactly. Ed's story isn't rare, but the details stand out. He's a U.S. Army veteran. He put in decades at General Motors, but never got his pension. His wife's long illness drained their savings. So at 88, he's still working full-time, just to pay rent and buy groceries.
That's where Samuel Weidenhofer enters. He's a TikTok creator. He meets Ed at checkout, hears his story, and shares a short video. That video struck a nerve, maybe because Ed reminds people of a grandfather, or because he's dignified in a job no one expects at his age.
Samuel then sets up a GoFundMe. 88 and still working. Let's support veteran Ed Bambus. The target is $250,000. That would let Ed finally retire in relative comfort. But what happens next?
It just explodes. Within days, over 50,000 people from around the world donate. The total passes $1.7 million, almost $2 million. That's not just retirement money. That changes everything. Imagine waking up at 88, thinking you'll work forever, and suddenly you're technically a millionaire.
The cameras caught Ed's reaction. He said he grew up poor, never owned a car or a phone, never imagined money like this. For the first time, he can consider what he wants, not just what he needs. He mentions maybe playing golf again, more time with his family.
But there's a real tension here. Why should someone who served and worked all his life need a viral campaign to retire? Is Ed's story uplifting, or does it reveal something broken in how we support elders and veterans?
That's really the heart of it. Ed kept working because he had to, not because he wanted to stay busy. The only reason his story turned out well is that 50,000 strangers stepped in. But what about the seniors who never get a TikTok moment?
Which raises a bigger question. If it takes a viral video and nearly $2 million in donations for one person to retire, what does that say about the systems meant to protect people like Ed?
Let's talk about what would need to change so people like Ed aren't left relying on GoFundMe. There are 4 main pillars: better pension systems, affordable healthcare, targeted support for veterans and seniors, and improved job protections for older workers.
Starting with pensions. Ed lost his GM pension, something that should have been guaranteed. If there were stricter rules, companies couldn't underfund or mishandle retirement accounts. Public pensions should mean a real living income, not just a token, and automatic portable retirement accounts could help close the gaps.
Second is healthcare. Ed's finances collapsed after his wife's medical bills. That's common. If we capped out-of-pocket costs or had universal coverage for healthcare and long-term care, families wouldn't go broke from illness or old age.
Third, targeted support for veterans and low-income seniors. Ed is both. Things like automatic enrollment in benefits, legal help, and extra recognition for veterans. These are possible, but they need real commitment and money.
And then labor protections. Ed was doing a full-time, physically demanding job at 88. Policies could make sure seniors who want to work can do so safely and flexibly, but also that no one has to work just to survive. Guaranteed minimum pensions or income would make retirement a right, not a privilege.
The difference is, Ed's GoFundMe was charity. These fixes are about rights and systems. Is solving deep problems with donations really sustainable, or just a patch?
And that brings us to the role of virality. On one hand, TikTok and GoFundMe changed Ed's life. Thousands stepped up, like an extended family. But most people in crisis don't go viral. Why does one story get attention while so many others are unseen?
Ed's case worked because he's a veteran, working in public, with a charismatic advocate. But that creates a kind of lottery. Help goes to those whose stories fit a certain mold, not necessarily those most in need. Is that fair?
And these viral stories push bigger debates into the spotlight. Gaps in healthcare, pensions, even the role of tech platforms. Should sites like GoFundMe fill in for government safety nets? Or are they starting to replace them in ways that actually widen inequality?
Is it healthy for a society if the default response to deep problems is start a GoFundMe? Or does that really show a lack of solidarity at the systemic level?
Ed's story isn't just about Michigan or the US. Around the world, populations are aging. Pension systems were designed for shorter lives, steadier jobs. Retirement ages are rising. Informal workers are left out, and healthcare costs late in life keep climbing.
And while Ed's donors show there's real generosity, there's also real vulnerability. Millions of elders, especially those widowed, disabled, or working informally, will never get a viral video. In countries with market-based pensions, crowdfunding is often the last resort. Where public systems are stronger, stories like Ed's are rare, but issues like loneliness and elder care still exist.
For Ed, this means he can finally retire, play golf, see family, afford day-to-day comforts. For everyone else, the lesson is practical. Support local seniors, veterans groups, food banks. Pay attention to older workers in your community.
And at the bigger level, take part in conversations about pensions, healthcare, elder care. Ask the hard questions about retirement systems that assume everyone can save for decades, when we know many people never get that chance.
In the end, Ed Bambas might never meet most people who changed his life, but his story shows we can make a difference in our own communities before someone needs a viral video just to be noticed.
Let's hear a few lists of questions. First up, what long-term solutions exist to stop seniors like Ed from facing poverty and working into their late 80s?
The answer is universal, reinforced pension systems, affordable, predictable healthcare and long-term care, targeted support for veterans and low-income seniors, and labor policies that guarantee a minimum income and safe, flexible jobs for elders.
Second question, how do viral fundraising campaigns affect debates about healthcare and pensions? They highlight the gaps in a very public way, influence opinions, and sometimes put pressure on policymakers. But they also risk making crowdfunding seem like an acceptable substitute for real safety nets.
So that's the story. One person, 50,000 strangers, and this question of how we treat each other as we age.
Thank you for listening. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Try it now, free.